Welcome back to Leah's Lifestyle and our book club day. Alright, guys, we're still on the highly sensitive person, and we. I didn't do my homework. That's okay. I have the homework listed here on what pages I'm supposed to do, so I will do those eventually. I think just having them written down, making sure that eventually you do them, even if it's at the very end of the book, is still worth it. So, we ended up, the last page was 32, I believe. No. We were on page 33. Yeah, because it's the questions here at the end that we have. All right, so we were on page 33. Get comfy, folks. This is a little loud for me. Okay. How trust becomes mistrust, and the unfamiliar becomes dangerous. Most researchers on temperament have studied short-term arousal. It's easy to study, for it's quite apparent from the higher levels of heartbeat, respiration, perspiration, pupil dilation, and adrenaline. There's another system of arousal, however, that is governed more by hormones. It goes into action just as quickly, but the effect of its main product, cortisol, it is mostly noticeable after 10 to 20 minutes. An important point is that when cortisol is present, the short-term arousal response is also even more likely. This is the long-term type of arousal makes us even more excitable, more sensitive than before. Most of the effects of cortisol occur over hours or even days. They are mainly measured in a blood, saliva, or urine, so studying long-term arousal is less convenient. But psychologist Meager Gartner of the University of Minnesota thought that the whole point of the pause-to-check system might be to protect the individual from this unhealthy, unpleasant long-term arousal. Research shows that when people first encounter something new and potentially threatening, the short-term response always comes first. Meanwhile, we start to consider our resources. What are our abilities? What have we learned about this sort of situation from past experiences? Who is around who might help out? If we think we or those with us can cope with the situation, we stop seeing it as a threat. The short-term alert dies out, and the long-term alert never goes off. Gunnar demonstrates this process in the interesting experiment. She set up a threatening situation which, like those Keegan used to identify inhibited children. But first, the 9-month-old babies were separated from their mothers for a half hour. Half were left with a very attentive babysitter who responded to all of the child's moods. The other half were left with the babysitter who was inattentive and unresponsive unless the child actively fussed or cried. Next, while alone with the babysitter, each 9-month-old was exposed to something startling, new. What is so important here is that only the highly sensitive babies with the native babysitters Only the highly sensitive babies with the inattentive babysitters showed more cortisol in their saliva. It was as if those with the attentive sitter felt they had a resource and had no need to make long-term stress response. Suppose the caretaker is your own mother. Psychologists observing babies with their mothers have discovered certain signs that tell them if a child feels securely attached. A secure child feels safe to explore, and new experiences are not unusually seen as a threat. Other signs indicate that a child is insecurely attached. The mothers of these children are either too protective or too neglectful, or even dangerous. We will discuss children's facing a novel. We will discuss attachment more in chapters 3 and 4. Research on sensitive children facing a novel, startling situation in the company of their mothers has found that these children do show their usual strong short-term response, but if a sensitive child is securely attached to mom, there is no long-term cortisol effect from the stress. Without secure attachment, however, a startling experience will produce long-term arousal. One can see why it is important that young HSPs, and older ones too, stay out of the world trying things rather than retreating. But their feelings about their caretakers have to be secure, and their experiences have to be successful, or their relations successful, or their reasons not to approach will only be proven true. And all of this gets started before you can even talk. Many intelligent, sensitive parents provide all the needed experiences almost automatically. Rob's parents are constantly praising his success and encouraging him to test his fears to see if they are realistic while offering help if he needs it with time. His idea of the world will be that it is not as frightening as his nervous system was telling him, and it was during that first year or two his creative traits and intuitive abilities, all of the advantages of being sensitive, will flourish. The difficult areas will fade. When parents do nothing special to help a sensitive child feel safe, whether the child becomes truly inhibited probably depends on the relative strength of the activation and pause to check system. But remember that some parents and environments can make matters much worse. Certainly, repeated frightening experiences will strongly reinforce caution, especially experiences of failing to be calmed or helped, of being punished for active exploring, and of having others who should be helpful become dangerous instead. Another important point is that more cortisol in any infant's body, the less the child will sleep, the less sleep, the more cortisol. In the daytime, the more cortisol, the more fear. The more fear, the more cortisol. Uninterrupted sleep at night and timely naps will reduce cortisol in infants. And remember, lower cortisol also means fewer short-term alarms. It was easy to see that this was a constant problem with Rob. It may have been for you too. Furthermore, if sleep problems beginning in infancy are not controlled, they may last into adulthood and make a highly sensitive person almost unbearably sensitive. So get your sleep. Sleep es muy importante. Muy importante es dormir. Into the depths. There's another aspect of your trait that is harder to capture in studies or observations, except when strange fears and nightmares visit the sensitive child or adult. To understand this very real aspect of the trait, one leaves the laboratory and enters the consulting room of the depth psychologist. Depth psychologists place great emphasis on the unconscious and the experiences embedded there, represented or simply proverbial, that continue to govern our adult life. It is not surprising that highly sensitive children, and adults too, have a hard time with sleep and report more vivid, alarming, archetypical dreams. With the oh shit, don't say stuff like that. With the coming of darkness, subtle sounds and shapes begin to rule the imagination, and HSPs sense them more. There are also the unfamiliar experiences of the day, some only half noticed, some totally repressed. All of them swirling in the mind just as we are relaxing the conscious mind so that we can fall asleep. Falling asleep, staying asleep, and going back to sleep when awakened require an ability to soothe oneself, to feel safe in the world. The only depth psychologist to write explicitly about sensitivity was one of the founders of depth work, Carl Jung, and what he said was important and exceptionally positive for a change. Way back when psychotherapy began with Sigmund Freud, there was controversy about how much innate temperament shaped personality, including emotional problems. Before Freud, the medical establishment had emphasized inherited constitutional differences. Freud tried to prove that neuroscience had speciality was caused by traumas, especially upsetting sexual experiences. Carl Jung, Freud's follower for a long time, split with him finally on the issue of the centrality of sexuality. Jung decided that the fundamental difference was an inherent greater sensitivity. He believed that when highly sensitive patients had experienced a trauma, sexually or otherwise, they had been unusually affected and so developed a neurosis. Note that Jung was saying that the sensitive people not traumatized in childhood are not inherently neurotic. One thinks of Gunner's finding that the sensitive child with a secure attachment to his or her mother does not feel threatened by new experiences. Indeed, Jung thought very highly of sensitive people, but then he was one himself. That Jung wrote about HSPs is a little known fact. I did not know this when I began my work on that trait. For example, he said that a certain innate sensitiveness produced a special prehistory, special way of experiencing infantile events. And that events bond up with powerful impressions can never pass off without leaving some trace on sensitive people. Later, Jung began to describe introverted and intuitive types in similar ways, but even more positively. He said they had to be more self-protective, what he meant by being introverted, but he also said that they were educators and promoters of culture. Their life teaches the other possibilities, the inferior life which is so painfully wanting in our civilization. Such people, Jung said, are naturally more influenced by their unconscious, which gives them information of the utmost importance, a prophetic foresight. To Jung, the unconscious contains important wisdom to be learned. A life lived in deep communication with the unconscious is far more influential and personally satisfying. But such a life is also potentially more difficult, especially if in childhood there were too many disturbing experiences without a secure attachment. As you saw from Gunner's research, and as you will see in Chapter 8, Jung was exactly right. So it's real and it's okay. Rob, Jerome Kagan, Megan Gunner, and Carl Jung should have you well convinced now that your trait is utterly real. You are different. In the next chapter, you will consider how you may need to live differently from others if you are going to be in healthy harmony with your quite different, highly sensitive body. By now, you may be seeing a somewhat dark picture too, one of fear, timidity, inhibitedness, and distressed overarousal. Only Jung spoke of the trait's advantages. But even then, it was in terms of our connection to the depths and darkness of the psyche. But remember that this sort of negativity is, once again, largely a sign of our culture's bias, preferring toughness. The culture sees our trait as something difficult to live with, something to be cured. Do not forget that HSPs differ mainly in their sensitivity processing of subtle stimuli. This is your most basic quality. That is a positive and accurate way to understand your trait. Which I like. I like that. Working with what you have learned, your deeper response. This is something to do right now, just as you have finished reading this chapter. Your intellect has taken in some ideas, but your emotions may be having some deeper reactions to what you have been reading. To reach these deeper reactions, you need to reach the deeper parts of the body, of your emotions, of the more fundamental, instinctual sort of consciousness that Jung called the unconsciousness. This is where the ignored, forgotten parts of yourself dwell, areas that may be threatened or relieved or excited or saddened by what you are learning. Read all of what is here, then proceed. Begin by breathing very consciously from the center of your body, from where your abdomen. Make certain that your diaphragm stays involved. At first, blow out through your mouth fairly hard, as if blowing up a balloon. Your belly will tighten as you do this. Then, when you inhale, the breath will be taken in from the level of your stomach very automatically. Your breathing in should be automatic and easy. Only your breathing out should be extended. That too can become less forceful and no longer out through your mouth once you are settled into breathing from your center, your belly, and not from high up in your chest. Once settled, you need to create a safe pace within your imagination where anything at all is welcome. Invite any feelings to center awareness there. It might be a bodily feeling, an ache in the back, a tension in your throat, an unsettling stomach. Let the sensation grow and let it tell you what is in there to show you. You also might see a fleeting image, or hear a voice, or observe an emotion, or a series of these. A cycle feeling might become an image, or a voice might express an emotion you begin to feel. Notice all that you can in this quiet state. It feels need to be expressed. If you need to laugh, cry, or rage, try to let yourself do that a little. Then as you emerge from that state, think about what happened. Note what stirred the feelings you had. What it was in what you read. What it was in what you thought or remembered while you read. How were your feelings related to being sensitive? Afterward, put into words some of what you have learned. Think about it for yourself. Tell someone else or write it down. Indeed, keeping a journal of your feelings while you read this book will be very helpful. Okay, so I think that's chapter 2 right there. That's the ending of chapter 2. And so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to get a journal. So give me 1 second. Go get your journal. I want everyone to take a moment here. I'm going to be right back. Okay, I'm back. So I had this thing and I've had it for many, many years, and I've been wanting a reason to open it. And I think this is a great point because then I can have a place where I journal down everything that I'm learning in my books this year. And I didn't read anything in January, but February is a great month to start. We'll see how much I can read. Oh, there's so much more in here. Oh, look how cute he is. Oh my god. Yes. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Got a little pencil. Very nice. Yeah, I prefer pens. Let's test this puppy out. Oh, she works. All time low. Makes me think of all time low, 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 low. Okay. So the way I'm gonna start this is I'm gonna write the book name. Hold on. Okay. My hair's falling down. Everything's happening all at once. Okay. So I'm gonna write this name. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these pages that I wrote down. The first one is 16. Okay. So I'm going to just write the page 16, and then I'm going to read the questions and we'll answer them as we go along. We can do that together. And we'll just catch up to this point and then we'll keep reading from here. What was your parents' attitude towards your sensitivity? Okay. Did they want you to keep it or lose it? Did they think of it as an inconvenience, as shyness, unmanliness, cowardice, a sign of artistic ability, cute? What about your other relatives, your friends, your teachers? Okay. And then the second section here starts with think about the media, especially in childhood. Who were your role models and idols? Um, okay. Did they seem like HSPs? Or were they or were they people you now see you could never be like? Okay, number 3. Consider your resulting attitude. How has it affected your career, romantic relationships, recreational activities, and friendships? Okay. Number 4. How are you as an HSP being treated now by the media? Think about positive and negative images of HSPs, which predominate. Note that when someone is a victim in a movie or a book, he or she is often portrayed as a natural, sensitive, vulnerable, over aroused. This is good for dramatic effect because the victim is visibly shaken and upset, but bad for HSPs because victim comes to be equated with sensitivity. 5. Think about how HSPs have contributed to society. Look for examples you know personally or have read about. Abraham Lincoln is probably a place to start. A highly sensitive person. It's hard to think about anyone being highly sensitive in our past, to be honest. I think of activists, right? I guess like I would have to say any type of activism is probably somebody who's very sensitive because they probably have strong emotions to those. So probably like Martin Luther King, there anyone underneath that branch? Okay. Or like actors, I would say, right? Number 6. Think about your own contributions to society. Whatever you are doing, sculpting, raising children, studying, psychologist, voting, you tend to reflect deeply on the issues, attend to details, have a vision of the future, and attempt to be. I'm just going to write yes. It doesn't sound like a question, but I'll write yes. Okay. Next page was 21. Okay, there's page 21. I'm going to say page 21. Okay, 1. Think about your response to the change and how you have always viewed it. Did you feel your... Think about your response to the change and how you have always viewed it. Change. Oh, how have I always viewed change? Think about your response to change and how you have always viewed it. Okay. It's the first time it's moved, so it makes sense. It's struggling. Okay. Okay. Did you feel you responded wrong or not as others would have? So this is still part of it, of the 1. Or for too long? Did you decide you were no good at some way? Did you try to hide your upset with others, or did you find out and tell you that you were being too much? I'm just gonna write yes, 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 and yes. Okay. And the next one is 22. And there's 2 more of them. So 2. Consider your response in the light of what you know now about how your body automatically operates. 3. Think if there's anything that needs to be done now. I especially recommend sharing your new view of situations with someone else. I'm just going to say talk to someone about this. And I actually borrowed this book from a friend, so that's probably who I'm going to share it with. And then 23, so I'm going to write page 23. Right. I'm on 23. Twenty, 22, 23 questions. Maybe I wrote down the wrong page. Oh no, that says 33. Page 33. Okay. How much could you overcome your fears by trusting others to help? How much could you overcome your fears? I don't know. Who was around whom you could who was around whom you could rely on? Who was around whom? Did you act as if mother is here, so I'll try? Did you learn to intimidate her, claiming words and deeds, applying them to yourself? Don't be afraid. It'll be okay. I have to see Rob using all of these methods. Now you might spend a moment thinking about yourself and your childhood, and we will do more of this in the next 2 chapters. I know you didn't really remember by judging from what facts you have. What was the first year probably like? How does your thinking of self-control affect your sensitivity now? Are there times when you can control your arousal? Who taught you to do so? Who were your role models? Do you think you were taught to control your cautiousness too much? You dared. Wow, there's a lot. Okay, let's see. Yes. Okay. What was the first year probably like? If you don't really remember by judging from what facts you have, what was the first year probably like? First year? School? Okay. How does your thinking of self-control affect your sensitivity now? Are there times when you can control your arousal? Who taught you to do so? Who were your role models? Do you think you were taught to control your cautiousness too much so that you dare to do more than your body can handle? Or does it seem that your lesson was that the world is unsafe and overarousal is uncontrollable? Okay. Now that we got those done, let's go to to page 39, I think it was, page 38, 39. We'll go through page 38, 39, and we will, okay, so this is when we do the breathing exercises. So I'm going to do page 38, and I'm going to write breathing exercise, and then page 39, and the question. Then we'll go through those, and then we will keep reading. So I'm going to do the little breathing exercise, and the breathing exercise is just like controlling your breathing in your stomach, feeling all your stuff, letting like thoughts come up from the book and everything, and seeing how that works. And then when we come out, there's going to be these questions. I'll read each question, and it's kind of like a little meditation moment here. Okay. What it was in what you read. Okay, what it was in what you thought or remembered while you read. Okay. Stir the feelings in. Okay, so your note. Then you emerge from the state. Think about what happened. Note. Think about what happened. Okay. Note what stirred the feelings you had. What it was and what you read. Okay. How are you feeling? How are your feelings related to being sensitive? Afterward, put into words some of what you have learned. Think about it for yourself. Tell someone else or write it down. Indeed, keeping a journal, which we're doing, of your feelings while you read this book will be very helpful. Okay, so I'm going to write down what I learned in the last 2 chapters real quick, and then that might be it. And we'll start tomorrow on chapter 3. That'll be pretty great. Pretty great. So let me finish this. Okay, thank you so much, guys, for joining me today, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Times might change like today did, so it might be a little bit later in the day, but either way, I will be here to read, and I can't wait. I hope you guys enjoy, and we will talk soon. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to comment. Did you get through all these questions before we came back, or did you do them here with me today? And how did it go? Share a little bit. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.